So welcome to Training Needs Pro, and in this video we're going to look at how to use Training Needs Pro, where it is applied and how to use it within your organisation. The thing is, we all have natural strengths and we all have some things that we will struggle with and that we need support in, and we'll probably always struggle with these things. Now, training can help us excel. Training can help us become exceptional at the things that we are naturally good at. And training can help us cope better with those things that do not come naturally to us. So what determines what we are naturally good at and what we naturally struggle with? Well, the single biggest factor that affects our performance is our personality type. It's our personality type that determines what we are naturally good at. And of course, it's our personality type that determines what we naturally struggle with. Training Needs Pro is unique, as it's a personality-centric training needs analyzer. So instead of just looking at an individual's training needs in isolation, it looks at them from the perspective of personality type. Let me briefly mention soft skills and hard skills. Clearly, personality-centric training needs analysis has an emphasis on soft skills rather than hard skills. However, it's not as simple as that. For example, would you say that attention to detail is a soft skill or a hard skill? Attention to detail is largely determined by our personality type, yet would often, by some, be thought of as a hard skill. Someone's ability to use a specific piece of equipment or software, for instance, is more clearly a hard skills issue. But as people have various interpretation of what is meant by soft skills, we prefer to talk about something being personality-centric or otherwise, and we tend to avoid using the term soft skills. So, what is affected by personality type? Well, the first law of personality states everything we say, think and do is affected by our personality. Every decision we make is affected by our personality. In short, just about everything is affected by our personality type to some extent. Now, Training Needs Pro will help identify areas where people are naturally talented, and it will identify where natural aptitude is low and support and training is most needed. You're provided with a large library of topics. Currently there are over 40 topics. Each topic is about a very specific aspect, and it is measured from 0 to 100. So in this example here, the topic is cares deeply about their customers and their needs. And what we're looking at here is someone who scores near 100 is clearly going to have a lot of natural talent when it comes to caring deeply about their customers and the customer's needs. If someone scores low and is in the red and scores 20, 30, 40, then this is not something that comes naturally to them. So, how do you design and use a Training Needs Pro report? Well, the good news is that you can design as many Training Needs Pro reports as you like and save them to your library of Training Needs reports for future use. And if you're a consultant or even within your own organisation, you will probably build up your own library of Training Needs Pro reports. The more specific you can be for each job role or each situation, the better. So here's an example. It's easy to illustrate this using examples. And in this example, we're looking at a customer service role. This actually comes from a client. It was a bank, and they were looking at which of their staff most naturally lend themselves to customer service, because they realised that they had a lot of people working in their bank where customer service was not naturally their thing, and with some other staff It was clearly something they were naturally very good at. So they were trying to identify this. So let's say that you were looking to identify people within your organisation that are naturally good at customer service. And you also want to identify what type of training and support is required. So this is how we'd approach this. In step 1, you would pick 7 topics. You design the report that you want to use. So you look through the library of 40 topics and you tick the box beside 7 of those topics. And these are topics that you decide are most important to that role of customer service. Now, there are many topics you could choose, even for customer service, but you have to narrow it down to 7. And the key here is to pick the topics that you feel are most important to your customer service role. There is no generic solution here. It varies from place to place. So here we've picked 7 already, just for this example. So when you log into your control room, the Training Needs Analysis Pro, and you go to view results, this is typically what you will see. So here we've got 3 employees, and we can see their scores and the 7 topics and how they score for each of these 7 topics. So step 2 would be to identify who is most likely to be the most naturally orientated towards delivering good customer service. So this is where you have to make a further decision. So again, if you look across the numbers, you'll see that these go up and down. So we have numbers as low as 10, and we have numbers as high as 79, and even a 90 and a 96. So you also should be deciding between those 7 topics that you've already selected, which of these 7 is the most important to you in this customer service role. So let us say that we decided that number, P3, which is not deflected by bullying clients. So let's say this is a pretty tough customer service role where there's a lot of clients can be conceived as being a bit bullying and pushing and asking for things, and you need your customer service people to be able to be strong and politely but strongly stand up to the customer. These scenarios do exist, in which case you might be looking at people who score high for P3, which is not deflected by bullying clients. Or maybe you decide that what's most important is their natural attention to detail within this role, in which case you'd be looking at P6, and you're looking at, in this case, the second employee, in this example, scores 90 for that, and therefore they have a very high level of natural attention to detail. Or maybe you're looking at other aspects. So you can pick which you like. What you can see here, even though all 7 topics are relevant to customer service, it's unlikely that any one person is going to score high for all 7 of these issues. So now you're starting to see what really matters and where the support is required. And then step 3, itemize what they will need the most training and support with. So we've already looked through this, and we can see, let's say that willing to stick to an agreed process is something that you do believe is important. And if we look at this here, we can see that none of the 3 employees scores very high for this. One as low as 33, somebody at 43, and somebody at 46, 48, can't make that out. So nobody is scoring very high, but if you feel within your organisation that the process that your customer service have to use is very important, then this would be an area you could look at this and say, okay, we need to provide training on what the process is and why it's important that they stick to the process, and you would provide training on that. Or it could be something else. Maybe you're looking at this and you're seeing P2, endless patience to solving customer problems. So what you're seeing here is these particular employees, these three, are not that patient when it comes to solving customer problems. So maybe you would need to work on some workshops or even some mitigation to help them understand why being patient is important, and help provide some tools that they can use to develop more patience, to allow them, maybe you set out or maybe you modify their process so that you say, look, you're given extra time for customers because we want you to take the time, so you effectively build patience into the system. There's many ways you can approach it, but at least what you're seeing now is who needs help with what and to what extent they need help. If they're scoring very low on something, so we have someone here for P4, which is they can cope with repetitive tasks and work days. So we have someone here that's scoring 10 and someone that's scoring 15. So these first two employees really struggle to cope with repetitive tasks and work days. So you either have to provide them with more support and training to allow them to deal with that, or you have to find a way of making that job a little more interesting and a little less repetitive for them so that they can cope better. So now you know who is ideal for your customer service roles and what support and training they need to become exceptional in the role. What you can also see from this is that even someone who is good at customer service and is strong in certain areas will also still require training and support in other aspects of the customer service role, because it's almost impossible that any one person would score very high for everything that matters in any given role. So now you start to see where to focus your training and your budgets and your efforts, and there's no point really training people on things that they are already naturally good at. In fact, you may achieve the opposite result. You may even upset them and bore them and annoy them because you're training them on things that they already know and feel that they're exceptionally good at. Here's another example, and we'll look at this example is really looking at management within an organisation. So let's say you're looking at all the managers within an organisation that want to identify what training and support each of them requires to become better managers. Now the thing about managers is that they come in all shapes and sizes, and you find good managers across the personality spectrum. So what we're looking at here is how each individual can become a better manager regardless of where they sit on the personality spectrum. So again, step one is pick your 7 topics. So what we've picked here are they put the team's need first, and they're proactive and goal-orientated, they're naturally compassionate towards the team, they're naturally good at making decisions, natural delegators and natural administrators. Now, there are many topics. You pick which 7 you feel are most important to the management role within the organisation that you're working with. Then step 2, identify the topics the organisation values most in its managers. So although we've picked 7 here, if you feel that, let me see, that P2, proactive and goal-orientated, is a very important topic or aspect of management, then you can prioritise on that. Or perhaps you'll look at P5, which is naturally good at making decisions, and maybe that's something that you feel. Or maybe within your company you feel that putting the team's needs first is the most important aspect of management. In which case, as I say, you can start to see, even within these 7, where your priorities sit and where you want to emphasize things. So again, in this example here, we only have one person that's scoring sort of 62 for puts the team's needs first. So probably all 3 here, but certainly employees 2 and 3 would need a lot of training and support on the helping them put the team's needs first. This is not something that naturally comes to them. They certainly have other strengths. If you look at, take example, the employee number 3 here, they're only scoring 55 for putting the team's needs first. However, they're scoring 90 for being proactive and goal orientated. And they're scoring very high for P5, which is they're naturally good at making decisions. So again, you're seeing that some managers are very strong in some areas and needing support in other areas here. And this is now allowing you to focus on who needs what support where. So that takes you to step 3, where you can itemize what each manager will need the most training and support with. So for instance, here on P2, proactive and goal orientated, well, all 3 of these are scoring 70 and above, and therefore that's maybe not a program that is required, and they maybe don't need much training or support when it comes to being proactive and goal orientated. However, when it comes to putting the team's needs first, it looks like they all need some support with that, so that might be a program that you would look at. And even on the delegating P6 here, none of these are looking particularly strong when it comes to delegating tasks, and therefore you might want to put in some training and some support around delegation. Why delegating is important, how to delegate, how to become a better manager by becoming a better delegator. Those are programs that these 3 employees would really benefit from. So now you can see which managers are strong in the areas that the organisation values most, even within those 7 topics. And you can see what training and support is required. So if we summarise, Training Needs Pro is unique. Use it to identify the natural talents within any organisation. Use it to identify who needs support and help with what. So narrow down your training and support into very specific areas rather than using a very broad brush to train everybody on everything, where some of that training is only going to annoy people and it's not really going to help anyone. When people work more to their natural talents and train or mitigate for the things that do not come naturally to them, you see a huge increase in overall performance. So that's Training Needs Pro. Start using it today. Use it to develop your organisation, or if you're a consultant or a coach, then use it to work with your clients and help their organisations improve and target training to be much more effective, much more focused.